It's because everybody thinks differently. And so, if what we're talking about today, you're going, what? I'm supposed to be thinking like that? No, we don't want you to think like that.
What's up, ADHD reWired listeners? Before we dive into today's show, just a quick announcement that registration for our winter season of coaching and accountability groups is happening now. If you're skeptical about setting goals in the new year because goals and resolutions haven't seemed to work or stick for you, that's where group coaching with ADHD reWired can help. Go to coachingrewired.com and get your name on our winter interest list so you can join us this week for our upcoming winter registration event on Friday, December 15th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 Eastern. We know that getting started is hard, but maintenance is next level. So go to coachingrewired.com to get your name on that interest list so you can join us for our upcoming winter registration event this Friday, December 15th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. And if you're listening to this early enough on the day it came out, why not join us for our monthly live Q&A where you can get some answers to your ADHD-related questions. Go to the website, adhdrewired.com, and click on the Events tab at the top of the page. More about our coaching groups at the break. And now, on with today's show. All right, welcome back to another episode of ADHD Rewired. It is November 14th. We are here for our live Q&A, and I just want to introduce who is here as our panelists. For the listeners of the podcast, we have a part of our team this week is in the infirmary. We got Kristen, who is actually joining us. She's here in Zoom, but she's actually in a waiting room at a doctor's office. We have Lisa, executive assistant, and helps with so many things around here, is also home, not feeling so good. We have Laura.
Hello. It's a beautiful day, and I'm excited to be here.
And we have Coach Brian Entler. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Excited to answer some questions.
Awesome. And in the waiting room, I'll give her a chance to just say maybe hello, unless the doctor's already taken her. Kristen Martz, one of our coaches. And we're going to then say hello to Marcus, who is going to ask the first question for the day. So Marcus, how can we help you?
All right. Well, so I've been in business for about 17 years, self-employed as a photographer. But in the last 5 years, it's just been an absolute struggle. The income has been stagnant, if not absolutely dropping off. And I know so much of it is attributed to just my inability to focus and to really truly determine like where I should be putting my time and my energy. I've gotten kind of sucked into the different sort of productivity models and the whole productivity porn on YouTube, and every app under the sun I've tried, and have become more of an expert on the ins and outs of Notion versus running my business. And I could just really use some help on just even some building blocks of some ways to sort of, keep on track, or I guess questions to ask myself, just to be like, okay, you're on the right track. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Because I seem to reinvent that to-do list weekly.
What are you aiming towards?
Consistency.
Right. But so you've been in business for yourself for 17 years as a photographer.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you're wanting to do? So the last 5 years, you said it has been kind of a struggle. What are your goals right now?
The goals, honestly, are just to, and I say consistency with all seriousness, to have resolve, to follow through with something. I would say like the goals, and I think this was something I had even addressed when I was in group, was I've had now, I guess it's probably been more than 5 years to where I didn't have any goals for myself because I never trusted myself to finish anything. So it seemed like such a ridiculous way to answer the question of goals, but it's still kind of that way. I feel like I know how to do the things, and I mean, I've learned so much, but there's still a lot of that, I guess, self-doubt that's kind of keeping me sort of shackled on moving forward.
Again, so help me understand what you're moving forward towards. That's what I'm not hearing.
Okay. I'm really wanting to keep things, or restart things to where, and then how do I formulate this? Just in a way that I can have consistency in what I'm doing in the effort, to where I'm sort of, I'm doing all the tasks that I need to do to keep myself busy and the business moving profitably.
Okay, so
I know I think the obscurity in my response is equal to the way that I'm just thinking about this, to be honest with you.
Well, what's that I always butcher the quote, but from Alice in Wonderland, when she's like, well, which way do I go? It's like, well, it all depends. Like, where are you trying to head? And says, well, if you don't know, it doesn't matter which way you go. Right. And part of what I'm hearing is like, you want consistent action, but to what end?
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's ultimately, I guess I don't know.
Okay. So what do you think has happened in the last 5 years? You said that your business has been not doing as hot as it was previously.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, have you identified what you think the challenges are in your business right now?
Well, the confidence to do the job, I feel that there's that fear of failure, but also the fear of success in a way. Because I've seen to where like things have been sort of simple, I've been able to handle it. But then as things started to get a little more complicated, there were a few more sort of plates in the air. It was when I started to kind of lose my nerve and my trust in myself to maintain. So it's ultimately now in a way that sort of has put my feet in concrete as to my next steps.
Okay.
And the desire is still there, like, gosh, more than ever. But I guess, it's just that lack of, confidence that's really been eroded over the years just as a result of this.
Okay. Something that I've personally found helpful is trying to zoom out as much as possible and see any dip more as a data point versus a global projection of where you're at. So the last 5 years, we've had 3 of those years have been basically in a global pandemic. Now we're dealing with a recession, right? So lots of factors that are zero fault of your own, right?
Right.
And you said you've been in business for yourself as a professional photographer for 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
Could we just highlight that's amazing? Like most people who are business for themselves don't make it.
Right.
Most businesses don't make it. You still want to be consistent. You've been at this for 17 years, right? So I just want to make sure that we are taking a moment to recognize that you have some staying power here.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get some other voices here. Laura?
So I'm hearing 2 pieces here. One is looking at hard skills, particularly when we're looking at apps and tools and systems, versus self-doubt, which is a piece of self-talk. So the word that I heard come up the most at the beginning here is consistency. Consistency is kind of a dirty word, I think, for people with ADHD. It's much more about how do we get back on the horse. It's about coming back to what we want, not being perfect, because perfection does not exist, particularly for us. As you said, you feel like you've never finished anything. My mom likes to say, knowing and doing are 2 different things, and I hate it when she does. So accountability is probably where it's at, and figuring out how to stay somewhat, I'm going to use the word, consistent in that area. How do you get back on the horse with accountability? Because the accountability is the tool that's going to start moving you forward. Last piece, I realized I'm kind of thinking of the hard skills as frugality. It's the same idea of what can you do with what you already have? So putting those 2 things together, what can you do with what you already have, because you have all of these tools and systems that you've accumulated over the years? And then how do you take what you already have and marry that to the accountability piece?
Absolutely. Well, I think one of the things that you even touched on with regards to just my using the term consistency is I think even still today, even though I've been diagnosed for about 5 years, is almost a denial about it, to where I know it exists and I'm aware of sort of the struggles, but I want to believe that it's not an issue. And so there's a lot of, I think I still harbor a lot of resentment about it. So it doesn't become like a pity party. It's just, I think it's more of just getting, I guess, sort of wrapped up in just being just pissed off about it.
What do you think could help with that?
I don't know.
I know a lot of people hate this question, but imagine you did know.
I mean, I know that I'm the first person to I don't track anything. And so the idea of not remembering sort of like the successes, because even Eric, like you said, in terms of me forgetting, dude, you've been doing this quite a while. My sort of my peripheral right now is just it's the lacking thing. And I think through group and stuff like that too, I guess it comes back to this. And Brian, we've talked about this as far as a fixed mindset. It's just sort of like I didn't think that I had that, but I find I'm incredibly fixed. And I think that's what's causing a lot of problems.
Brian, feel free
Because
to
I'm
jump
sort of
in.
like
Sorry, were you addressing a specific question about a fixed mindset or musing?
well, musing, of course.
Okay, musing. Another amusing. Well, yeah, obviously our mindset shifts and changes over time. It can get stale if we're doing the same thing over and over, which actually is one thing I want to pivot a little bit and kind of reframe some of these questions. You've been in business for 17 years as a photographer. Has your practice changed? Has anything changed about what you're doing in terms of the services you're offering or how your business runs generally?
Yeah, totally. 10 years ago, I went from doing like editorial commercial work to doing more portrait work for individual, either small businesses or individual people.
Okay, I'm curious, why did you make
So,
that shift?
wow, this is tough. I come to a point to where I was either going to move to New York and pursue more of the fashion and beauty work, or move back to California. So I think I lost my nerve of going to New York and really making a go of it, and sort of conceding that it just wasn't going to happen. And California is definitely not the same market. So of course I had to kind of pivot a little bit and just do something differently. And it became just kind of this easy thing for me to kind of fall into, that I'm like, oh, I can be, rather than trying to, scramble through a sea of people in the commercial world, I can maybe stand out in this market. And so that was about 10 years ago.
Okay, and you've been doing that, kind of working in that market with those offerings for about 10 years now.
Correct.
And that was a
Mm-hmm.
decision, a shift you made to cater to the market where you're actually located. You have to do the work that's available to you. I'm wondering, so would you say you're passionate about running your business, you're passionate about being successful? Are you passionate about the work you're doing right now, the type of work?
Not all of it. No.
Okay, that's very valid. We all do work that we're not passionate about,
Mm-hmm.
except for coaching. Coaching's awesome. But other work, a lot of us have to get through doing stuff that we don't really want to do. So I'm curious, so you've been in that state where you've been doing the work that's available for about 10 years, and you've invested a lot of times in productivity systems and management systems, but you already acknowledge that you feel like your mindset and your emotional state might be getting in the way. Some of the things you're describing sound very consistent with burnout. Do you think you could possibly maybe be experiencing some burnout?
Without a doubt. Yeah. Yeah. I've thought about that, and then it's that whole trying to talk yourself out of it. No, you're fine. You're fine. And keep pushing.
It's more of a thought question. I mean, I can't answer it for you, but just something that
right. Yeah, absolutely.
That burnout piece though is real, and something that in conversations that I've been having with people is realizing this idea that sometimes we get into this phase of like burnout, but we have these obligations, people counting on us, and so we somehow dig down deep and muster the energy to keep on going. And then we get in this cycle of like, we aren't really allowing ourselves to have this time for recovery. And so I'm kind of thinking about burnout through this lens of like re-scarring burnout scars without really giving it time to heal. I mean, I've been doing this work now for 10 plus years with ADHD, or about 10 years with ADHD rewired, right? Like I have not had an extended break yet. And so right now, part of my focus is how do I restore some of that energy while continuing to maintain a thriving business that I enjoy, right? And also recognize that I can love what I do and need a break at the same time. Like those two things don't need to be in conflict with each other. I'm also wondering, and I'm thinking about a conversation that Brian and I actually had. I was actually doing a coaches meeting. I think that you're maybe thinking about the same thing. So over the last season or two of our coaching groups, with shifts in the economy and the world kind of opening up, we noticed that there was a bit of a dip in interest. And so we've done some things around, we lowered the cost, returning it to kind of 2020 pricing. And that has actually helped. But as we're trying to kind of figure out, okay, like what else has changed? Brian asked me this question that has definitely stuck with me. And he says, it sounds like, Eric, that you are actually taking the blame for the state of the economy. And it was one of those questions where I was like, damn it, Brian. Because I recognize yes, that was, I wasn't explicit about it. But when he said that, when he asked me that question, it clarified, oh, yeah. Like when he recognized it that way, it's, I guess, not logical, right? It's like, so that taking a step back, learning to be a little bit kinder on ourselves and the process. I'm wondering, with where you're at right now, instead of like beginning with this idea of, let me brainstorm all these possible ideas, what if you brainstormed possible questions? Like really focus on the idea of question storming. Right? Like, so what we need to change? What other opportunities are out there? What if I did need to pivot? What kind of things might be options?
Yeah.
Because I do think it's so important for us with ADHD that we do need to have a level of we need to kind of get jazzed by what we are doing, right? Like, and I think if we are not, it's just hard. It's just really hard when we are kind of going through the motions. It's one of the superpowers that neurotypical people have is they can work jobs they don't like. Neurodivergent folks like us, we have to like the majority of what we are doing in our work to succeed at it. Brian?
Well, I was going to exactly where you were going. We've discussed this before, Eric, where it's very difficult for ADHD people to do work they find unsatisfying, boring, monotonous in the long term, because ADHD is a state of being. I'll say that. I'm not going to say it's a disorder. It's a state of being where our reward system, our dopamine-based reward system in our brain is impaired. It doesn't work as well as neurotypical people. We're not getting the rewards. It's very like that. The dopamine hit from actually being invested in our work. It's much harder for us to stick with it long term. And I can relate to this. My first career after college, I worked in finance and banking and kind of crashed and burned after 4 or 5 years, even though I was very, very capable. I just couldn't deal with the monotony of it. It just was not stimulating at all. That's why I think there might be something going on there. Like, just keep that in mind. We're like, sometimes we really, to be invested, ADHD people really need to be stimulated. We're always seeking that stimulation. So if it's become this like kind of bland malaise of the same non-interesting work over and over, might want to look at that, your emotional connection to that.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Because one of the things that I had identified was that because where I'm sort of, my shortcomings are on, the back end, the business side of things, whether it be the accounting or the marketing or things like that I generally just don't really like. Like, I got into this because I love being out with people and engaging and being creative. It's very on the fly, super stimulating. So I still really love what I do, almost regardless of what the subject matter is. It's just being out and doing it. So I know that there's still some life in it for me. It's just trying to figure out how to, I guess, get past some of those things that I've allowed to bog me down and to feel bad about, to go, oh, you're not the accountant you thought you could be. So I guess it's working through that to feel like, no, you can go out and be the photographer you wanted to be.
So what do you see as sort of next action steps for you, Marcus? Now that you've kind of gotten an unofficial mastermind right here.
Right. Right. Thank you, everyone. I guess really I need to look at like what are those responsibilities or jobs that are truly bogging me down, that don't fill me up, and that are just making even the things that I do look forward to not as good. And then figure out, how quickly can I delegate that to someone and just get it off my plate.
Brian, you follow up?
That's exactly what I was going to say. How many of these things can be outsourced? And I'm not asking if they can be outsourced, how many of them can be outsourced, because some of them can.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope that was helpful for you, Marcus.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
All right. Well, thank you. We're going to take a quick break, and we have a bunch of other questions here in the queue. So we will be right back. Support for ADHD Rewired comes from our award-winning online coaching and accountability groups. Our winter season starts in the new year on January 11th of 2024, and registration is happening now. Learn more at coachingrewired.com and get your name on our winter interest list so you can receive your invitation to join us for our upcoming registration event this Friday, December 15th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 Eastern. It's hard to believe that December is already almost halfway done. The holiday season is upon us and the new year is creeping up fast. So if you've been thinking about what your plans are going to be in the new year, but have no idea where to start, whether it's fatigue and planning to recover from the holidays, you aren't sure of the goals that you want to pursue in the new year, or you've been shying away from New Year's resolutions because you feel they end before you even start, this is where coaching with ADHD Rewired can help. Yes, ADHD can get in the way of our best intentions, and for some of us, being neurodivergent means this time of year can be overwhelming and difficult to recover from. So whether it's planning, creating new routines, improving self-talk, asking better questions, setting goals, and creating actionable to-dos, or giving ourselves permission to engage in more self-care and dream big, don't wait any longer.
I decided to join the group because I was really lost. I really felt like I was drowning in life. I would, in the mornings, just be like, why is this so hard getting ready for the day? When I'd come home from work, I would be like, why is this so hard? And not also knowing which direction to go. Especially as a mom, you just have people dependent on you. And when you're like supposed to be the anchor, it was rough. And I needed something to do and to change where I was going. Because really, I was just floundering. There really was a lot of value in hearing from other people and their experiences. I really want to remember like all the planning skills and practices that we had together, and the value in the year, the month, the week, the day, and all those different perspectives help. And we all have brains where we make connections so well, and so that really helps us. And the legacy too, that was huge, and how that really all fits together into one puzzle instead of flying by the seat of my pants like I was before.
There are a bunch of people who have some of the same difficulties as me. I am not alone, and my biology makes my path, understanding, and emotions different than what other people around me probably look like, and that can be okay. Everybody sharing the same story. It's like, oh, is that problem? You have that too? Oh my gosh, I'm not the worst person in the world. Like, that kind of stuff is really good for me.
You know, hearing everyone else and hearing their stories and just the emotion that comes through, and realizing I had been missing that, like those kind of conversations for a couple years. Just hearing everyone's authentic story. I want to hear it. I didn't know what to expect. It was just absolutely worth it. I've gained so much. It just completely changed my outlook. I'm learning to reframe things. I see value in myself. I see where I can succeed. I see where I can have a lot of growth. If you're thinking of joining this group, just do it. You cannot regret this. You will not regret it. You only have gains. It's hard, but it's so worth it.
The new year is just around the corner, and you deserve to have 2024 be your best year yet. So if this helps you, then here's your permission to dream big, create, or re-engage with your wildly important goals, and for you to start the new year by starting with you. And the best part about group coaching is that you won't have to do any of that alone. Go to coachingrewired.com to get your name added to our winter interest list so you can join us this Friday, December 15th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 Eastern. Once you've added your name to our interest list, you'll receive an invitation to start your pre-registration process. That's coachingrewired.com so you can join us this Friday, December 15th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 Eastern. And if you're listening to this after that, go to the website to find out when the next registration event is, but don't wait. As we believe in growth through community. That's what we're all about here at ADHD Rewired, and we can't wait to meet you. One more time, that's coachingrewired.com. All right, we are back. We have a question here from Diane, who is asking about AI and ChatGPT around productivity hacks, including guidelines for prompts. Dan goes on to say that they've struggled to develop a customized hybrid task management productivity system. She wants to know what our best practices are, ahas for getting stuff done. Wants us to walk us through our workflow process. What's paper-based, what's digital, what's been a must-have or game-changer app or practice. Okay, so this is a question that sometimes I think can require several months to really grasp. This is a lot here. So one of the things that I will definitely say is that, with ChatGPT and its AI tools, like they are very wow, but at the end of the day, like it's going to help us with some of our thought processes and organize some of our thinking and make certain things absolutely easier to do, but we still have to take action. And it is still just a tool, and tools don't work completely all by themselves, right? They do require that initiation. Like right now for me, like I'm still in the novelty phase of ChatGPT, so I'm still I still get excited to use it and find it very engaging. I am sure, like every other productivity app that I've ever used, the novelty will wear off, right? So when we think about like what is the most important part of our sort of productivity toolbox, to me, it's still people, it's community, right? That being said, I think it's just, I want to caution people to not think that ChatGPT is not going to be the holy grail of tools. There isn't one. When Siri was first added to the iPhone, like I was convinced for a while that like this is the best thing to happen to ADHD since Ritalin. This is going to solve all my problems. And, it made it so easy to add things to my to-do list. And then after having like 80 to 100 past due items on my reminders app, I was convinced that, this just must not be the right app for me. So let me go find another app that can do this. And after trying all of the productivity apps, I've absolutely come to the conclusion that it is not about the tool. It's about how we engage with our tools. And so I just want you to be mindful that like the tool helps solve a problem for a time, but it's not going to be the thing that solves all the problems for all the time. Okay, so there's that piece. As far as prompt engineering, this is a really important part of understanding ChatGPT. You can literally ask ChatGPT to help you learn how to do better prompt engineering. Engage with it as an organic conversation, because that is what it does. So giving it context. So act as is a big prompt starter. So act as an organizer, act as a time management expert, act as a travel agent. Right? You're having trouble, planning something like that. Act as a business consultant. Right? So you're giving it these contexts to act sort of within. Then you're going to tell it specifically what is the task that you want it to do. Right? So it's to write an email, create an outline, develop a presentation, and so it can do a lot of these things. Tell it what you don't want it to do, right? Then as you are getting the responses, and give it a lot of information, and let's say you get a response that you're like, that's not quite it. Tell it that. Give it the feedback. Continue to have this conversation with it because it learns from you. Tell it what you liked. Tell it what you didn't like. It will learn from you. There are so many things out there right now that are guiding prompt engineering, and to me, it all kind of looks like the same stuff, right? What I would say, engaging in ChatGPT and learning how to use ChatGPT and similar tools is very similar to engaging in the coaching process, and it's experimentation and iteration. Experimentation and iteration. Play with it. You're not going to break it. There's no like right or wrong way to do it. Experiment and play with it. I will mention one tool that that I think is kind of cool, that I just learned about last week. It's called Goblin.tools. And I think it actually runs, the engine behind it is ChatGPT. But one of the things I like about it, they have this thing called the estimator. And so what it will do, you'll put a task in it. What do you have to do? And then it will automatically break down the tasks, and you can specify how detailed you want that task to be broken down to. And it will also give you time estimations for each subtask as well. So while I think that ChatGPT can do that right in the context of ChatGPT, if you're feeling overwhelmed on how to get started with that, I think Goblin.tools is also a really great tool for that. So I hope that that is helpful for you. And we have another question from a dear friend, Trina. How's it going? Trina? Well, I'll let Trina hang out until her audio is connected, and then we can go to another question. Hi, Kristen. How you feeling? Not so good? Aw. Glad you're here, just hanging out. Okay. Have we... Kamai is interested in talking, I believe. So let's bring Kamai up. All right.
Hi there.
Hi, Kamai. How are you?
Good. Thank you. My question is, well, there are two questions.
Okay.
One is more from a larger perspective. How do you think that internal family systems and the different parts, like I've heard people over and over in the groups, besides myself, be like, well, this part wants this and this part wants that. And I'm kind of like stuck on which part to listen to. And where, do you think that people with brains, at least myself and a few others, are just more awake and aware to all these different parts? Yeah, just wondering what your thoughts are on that. And then when those different parts are talking, and the takeoff is from the last group, from the core values, I narrow it down to 2 core values, right? And all these other values stem off these core values. So which part, which core value to which part am I pleasing, listening to and working with? It's a complicated question.
It is. I'm also hearing a lot of sort of binaryism within this question, like that it has to be like this or that. And I'm wondering if there's an and answer here.
Yes. And I think that's why, so I can narrow it down to 2 core values. And my reflection is that there's an agreement, in a sense, on the parts. And that's why it could be narrowed down. And then once it's narrowed, there's that general agreement besides them, that's where it starts getting this and that and that and this.
So let me back up just a little bit just for listeners. So IFS stands for Internal Family Systems. The creator of IFS clearly did not talk to any marketing people because it is a really bad name for what it is, because it has nothing to actually do with your family. The idea of internal family systems, it comes from systems theory, which describes how everything is sort of interconnected within the people and our relationships that we have with others. And so we have these various parts internally. There's a book actually called No Bad Parts, where it talks about how to understand how each of these parts is serving a role in our lives and trying to really listen to it. Now, I've done some reading and some training on IFS. I say my most of the experience I've actually recently had in IFS is actually in therapy as a client. I think it's really interesting sort of thinking about what are these different drivers. In a lot of ways, I think our internal family is the drivers of our motivations and actions. And so really trying to listen to, especially those ones that feel like they are just a big pain in the ass and drive a lot of that emotional dysregulation, making peace with some of those and getting curious about some of those, and looking at the value at the ones that in some ways don't seem to be serving us, because I think there is value in some of those parts that are maybe annoying and we want to push away, but they are still part of us. And so how do we actually make peace and integrate that in our understanding of self? I'm really curious, Kristen, if you feel well enough to share your thoughts on this, because I think that you've done some work around this as well.
Well, I haven't done any training. I did I've started that book, and I'm actually in the middle of that book because I wanted to know more about IFS. My broader thought is for everyone to realize that all of our intervention models, they come from a different theory. It's whatever theory that speaks to the creator of these models. And that I want us to all understand that we may talk about a model like this, and these are therapeutic intervention models, and we can take parts of them and use elements of practices from them in our own lives in a, what's the word, in a non-clinical way. And that doesn't mean we're actually using the model, and that we're using these parts because the parts of the models, because they speak to us, because they speak to how our brain functions, and everybody's brain functions differently. If I told my husband about IFS, he'd be like, bullshit. He'd be like, He goes, I got no parts in my head. Sure, I, have inner dialogue, and we've talked about that and been reading articles on that and laughing that some people have none, apparently, based on studies, which is just for like minds blown around that. It's because everybody thinks differently. And so if what we're talking about today, you're going, what? I'm supposed to be thinking like that? No, we don't want you to think like that. And so what I'm thinking is you take the parts of what you understand about that model or that theory and have it resonate with you. If it doesn't resonate with you, I wouldn't get so wrapped up in the time and energy in trying to make it fit, if that makes sense.
Well,
Yeah.
So one of the areas is like I was accessing like my higher self finally because I was so blocked. I was like, what part is blocking me from getting stuff done? And I realized it was like this young part that really needed to be creative. And I wasn't paying attention to that need to be creative. So when I gave access, I put a timer on and I gave access to that part. And like she needed, with everything that was going on in the world, it was like she needed to create a sun and a tree and grass. And once I could do that, and I gave space for that, then I was able to move on again. So that
what I hear with you is the values work that you've done in program and in our community, our alum community, and learning a little bit about IFS, the parts that you understand, and you're integrating those into a practice for yourself that has been beneficial. What would it be like then? Now we're not trying to say what the model is. What would it be like for your different parts that you identify? How do you identify their core value, each one of those? And see what I mean by making it, we morph it into, what do we need and how is it helping us be beneficial to us? Because it sounds like that's what you did. And now I'm putting words to it, I hope.
That's exactly. Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
I mean, because I have my like 2 core values and it was like, oh yeah, that part, this. And then though I got stuck because then the overwhelm starts to set in of they're all so important and they're all like,
well, a machine can't work if one thing goes offline. And what if all these parts are part of the machine that helps you run as the human that you want to be in the world? So maybe it's just, care and maintenance of these different parts, self-love for the certain thing. Like you said, creativity was needed, that higher self you were talking about, and connecting those pieces that way.
Yeah. I mean, is your husband neurotypical?
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So that's kind of like that question that I started in with, are people who are neurotypical? I don't know how you want to.
My son is neurodivergent, and I think he falls more in line with his dad in this right here. So I don't think it's a neurotypical neurodivergent. I think sometimes we might get too wrapped up in that sometimes because I think all brains are different and unique. I really do. I just think that our neurodivergent, we have some actual casework that shows there is something different about the way our mechanisms work. But I still think that everyone has a really unique way of thinking at times, if that makes sense too.
Yeah, it does. It does. And so how would you I guess like Brian, we talked about, how to prioritize like more of the 4, like urgency, shelter, like where, hunger, sleep. So when you're past that, like you've gotten past that, and so you have all these other things going down, how do you narrow it down from there?
You're asking Brian, right?
I'm asking anyone who wants to.
Okay.
The other day we were in GPA, my session on the alumni network, and Kim I was having a difficulty prioritizing, and I used, well, try running it through like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if everyone is familiar with that, where the base level of the foundation is, shelter, your physical well-being. Kamai was trying to decide between fixing a window in her house and working on a more creative project. And I said, well, maybe in the light of that, you want to work on the window in your house to make sure your house's physical environment is secure. But what I think what Kamai is what you're referring to now, if I'm getting it correctly, is like what happens after you get past the base level things. There's actually another version of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I can't recall what it's called, but instead of a pyramid, it's a boat. Whereas the bottom is the hull of the boat that keeps you afloat, and then above that is the sail. The sail is the things that help us move to grow. These are things that, like, another coach that I work with who does more the Stephen Kotler flow coaching stuff introduced me to this chart. The base level stuff is the stuff that keeps you afloat, the kind of base pyramid. And then the other stuff, the higher level stuff, that's the stuff we invest energy in because we want to grow. We want to, capture the wind and sail away. So a little bit of a nuance on that, but like we've achieved that. And then you have to wonder, like, everything above that is something we're doing to grow, to thrive, to invest in. So the question is, what do you do when you get past the base level, the general well-being, you're just existing in the world securely? That's when you can start investing in creative stuff, and the creative things that we can grow in. So when you ask, what do we do when we get past our base level needs? Can you refine, what do you mean by what do we do? Do you mean how do we prioritize after that?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, how do I time management? Then it gets into the time management issue of, oh, okay, how do I do a little of this, a little of that? But then, like probably other people, but at least for myself, I can really get into a little of this, a little of that, and then the chunk doesn't really get accomplished.
I'll contemplate that. It's a very open-ended question. I don't want to, like, how do you time management after you have accomplished your base level goals? I would say just,
I have a thought around the question around this. Are you digging deeply enough? Are you questioning and then after you answer that, you're questioning again to determine, is this in the safety, security, the hierarchy needs, the survival, or is it up into the values? And could you keep peeling back the layers to get to which one gets to my two core values first, if that would be helpful of a way to prioritize.
Yeah, that's pretty deep. I gotta like.
Your question's deep.
I know.
I love this. It's pretty cool.
I'm having a moment here where I'm like, I just want to think about these questions. Like, can I pause having to host this thing so I can just literally just take time to process these questions? Because they're actually really, really good.
Thank you. And which values are the vehicles? I think you sort of said this. I think I use it in a different language. I kept debating about the top three. And once I realized, these two are the vehicles that get me to this one, I finally figured out what the core one was. And that's what I meant by I kept unlayering. I kept asking, well, if I have creativity, do I have connection? Not always. But if I have connection, do I have creativity? Well, yeah, because I use my creativity to make connections. It's not a concrete answer. It's an answer specific to me. That's what I know. How I use connection is I use my creativity. I get creative with what I want to ask someone, or I connect with them because of my creativity per se. But yeah, so, thinking that way, maybe that's a way to sort of, I love this because now I'm thinking, how can I prioritize certain things? And when I hear people say, well, I go to work for the money. I go, well, okay, what about the money? What do you need the money for? Well, I need to pay for this house. And I go, do you need to pay for that house or for any house or for shelter? So we get down to is the value in having a magnificent house that costs more than typical, or is the value in just having shelter? So can you reduce the space you live in? If they're thinking money problems, that's what I mean by unlayering and getting to the value piece. Is not just going with a house, but going, is it because it's this house, or it's because a shelter for you?
I think those are lots of questions that are going to require some time to think about. So with that, we are going to take one more really quick break and then come back and answer, I think, one more question. And then we're going to be wrapping this one up. So we will be right back. All right, ADHD reWired listeners, it is once again time for some of your favorite parts of this podcast. It's the ad for a product or service that doesn't actually exist. Introducing the New Year's Resolution Randomizer for the ADHD mind. Are you tired of setting the same old New Year's resolution only to forget what they were by February? Not February. Only to forget what they were by January 2nd? Do you find yourself overwhelmed by the endless possibilities of self-improvement only to end up binge-watching shows about people organizing their closets? Or some other magical shit like that? Well, worry no more. The New Year's Resolution Randomizer for the ADHD mind is here to revolutionize your resolution setting experience. This state-of-the-art, somewhat reliable system is designed specifically for the wonderfully wondering minds of the ADHD community. Just input your interests, your wildest dreams, and how many times you've forgotten your coffee in the microwave this week, and voila! Our patented algorithm, powered by the collective distractibility of 1,000 squirrels. Squirrel jokes are too overused. Maybe unicorn? What about squirrelicorns? I'm not sure if that works, but we're going to try it. Powered by the collective distractibility of 1,000 squirrelicorns, will generate the most unexpectedly perfect resolution for you. But wait, there's more. Each resolution comes with its own set of randomly timed reminders popping up when you least expect them, during a meeting, in the middle of your shower, or right as you're finally about to start that thing you've been putting off. It's kind of like the perfect blend of chaos and motivation. So why settle for boring, achievable goals? Let the New Year's Resolution Randomizer for the ADHD mind bring a spark of unpredictability to your planning, because that's what we need. After all, why make resolutions you might forget when you can make ones that you'll never even see coming? Disclaimer, the New Year's Resolution Randomizer for the ADHD mind is not responsible for any resolutions involving skydiving in Antarctica or learning Klingon. Use with a sense of humor and a dash of daring, batteries not included. And just in case you missed it, this is not real. But you know what is real? All the support and connection and community that we have right here at ADHD reWired. Whether it's our coaching groups, our adult study hall co-working community that you can find out more about at adultstudyhall.com, Patreon, or Facebook community. There's probably something else I'm forgetting, but ADHD reWired really is all about community and connection. And let me tell you, that is real. Oh, you know what else is real? My birthday's coming up at the end of December, December 29th. I don't know if this is even possible or feasible. We have like 800 and some reviews on Apple Podcasts. Maybe we can get it to 1,000, because I know that there's a bunch of you that keep meaning to leave a review for the podcast. What if this is the month where you do it? If I remember, I'll try to remind you to do it again next week. But I don't know, just maybe assume I'm not going to remember that unless I write it down, which I might. And I'm rambling now because I didn't script this part out. And I'm going to get back to the episode right now. But please leave a review, because I'd appreciate it. It would mean a lot. Thanks. Now back to the show. And we are back. Let's see if we have one final question. Let's go to Juliet. Juliet has questions about managing teenage boys with ADHD. So my one sort of like, I guess it's sort of a joke about teenagehood is the cure is time. You know, with thinking about adolescence, you know, in a lot of ADHD, especially, I guess especially boys, but ADHD adolescents, you're going to see more of that sort of oppositional piece, because I think that a natural part of development in adolescence is developing autonomy. You know, we were all teenagers once, and probably most of us gave our parents gray hairs and did the things that are like, we know best, our parents don't know anything, right? And it's part of the very natural process of differentiation towards independence, right? So part of that is being able to identify, all right, one, what is normal for this stage in life? Are they safe? And then supporting them to learn from mistakes. Because like I think most of us who ADHD'd through our adolescence made a bunch of mistakes and learn from them. Obviously, if we're here, we live to tell about them, right? But I guess every teenager is also different, just like every person is different. So let's check with Kristen, who also works with teens as well in her therapy practice.
My first thought was, and it's not meaning to presume what the person who wrote this was intending to say or how they do view the world. My first thought was, wow, I don't know that me personally say, how would I manage my teenage boys? I would be more curious, how do I teach my teenage boys to manage themselves? And I'm wondering if sometimes I was kind of micromanaged, kind of like with an OCD parent. And so she didn't know what she was doing was hurtful to me. So I didn't get to make a lot of mistakes as a kid and had to kind of make them as an adult, which was a little bit harder. That's where my brain went. And so I'm just wondering if that may be the first, delayering step, is getting all the way back to it's kind of like what I think, Eric, you were sharing with Marcus. What is your goal? To what end are you trying to do whatever it is you're trying to do? And so to really see that, so that your intention goal is actually the intention behind your actions. And it might help guide you with what types of actions you want to be utilizing.
And I think for any parent of probably almost any kid of above 10 years old, and probably even some below, motivational interviewing is a skill that I would highly recommend parents learn about. Right? So it comes from the therapy world. It's used in coaching. It's basically asking questions to help the person you're trying to help figure out what's basically in it for them. What's the motivation for them to, for behavioral change, right? So if instead of telling someone to not do something, like start asking them questions. Well, like for example, with my son, like we're having issues with him like constantly being on his iPad during the school day, and so we talking to him about. I thought that one of your big goals is you wanted to try to make more friends, and really helping him understand that maybe when you're on your iPad all day and you're missing some of these interactions in the classroom, is it possible that could be getting in the way of this goal of making friends? Right, so really trying to identify what is important and motivating for them in order to make these changes. Because, I think as parents, I think we all would love to be able to ask those questions that help our kids figure it out and help them think like they came up with the solution. To me, that's like both ninja parenting and also effective parenting. Because at the end of the day, our kids are with us until 18, 19, 20 years old maybe. And we need to help our kids become problem solvers. And we don't help them become problem solvers by solving the problems for them, right? By supporting them and also letting them know it's okay if they make the wrong decision. We're here to learn from that and be able to move forward, which is also very true in all of our processes of personal growth. It's about experimentation and saying, hey, I'm trying this. Let's see how that worked. If that didn't work, let's try something else. If it did work, let's try to harness what we understood about what worked, right? So we can try to replicate that as much as possible. Anyone want to add anything to that? Okay. Well, let's call this one a wrap. I want to thank everyone for your questions, and I'm hoping that Lisa and Kristen are all feeling better by the next Q&A, and hopefully way before that, we got this. And Lisa and Kristen, thanks for being here, even though you're not feeling very well. I appreciate it. So hopefully you can go and get some rest. And Brian, thank you. Laura, thank you. And for everyone who was here and asking questions and went live, thank you very much to you as well. If you are looking to do some virtual co-working, check out our Adult Study Hall community at adultstudyhall.com. We will catch you back here next month. We do this every second Tuesday of the month. Until then, have a wonderful rest of your day, week, month, and we'll catch you next time. And that concludes another fun episode with the team. If you're interested in joining us live for our monthly live Q&A, head on over to ADHD rewired.com and click on the events tab at the top of the page. Once you are there, you can register for our next monthly Q&A and all of our upcoming Q&As so you never miss a beat. And remember, if you want to get more information about our coaching groups, have a few questions, and are ready to start your new year by starting with you, go now to coachingrewired.com to get registered for our upcoming winter registration event this Friday, December 15th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 Eastern. I know the holidays are coming, so don't wait. Things are going to get busy. We'd love to have you, especially if you've been thinking about joining us for a while. Then if you love the work that we are doing, why not become a patron? Members at $5 a month or more can get full, uninterrupted episodes of this show with all the announcements at the very end. And if you sign up for a $25 a month level on our Patreon community, you can join me and other patrons every fourth Tuesday of the month, except for this month because it's December. So our next Patreon-only coaching call will be on Tuesday, January 23rd. Otherwise, you can find everything from our coaching groups to our adult study hall community to our Facebook community, Patreon, and adult study hall community. I think I already mentioned that. Patreon. Oh, yep, we are repeating ourselves here. And everything is at ADHDrewired.com. You can get on our email list or our interest list for the coaching groups. And another big thanks to the team for another great episode. And a huge thanks to everyone who tuned in live to chime in or to ask your questions. That's all for now. We will see you in the next one.